Good morning, Alex and friends. I'm Grace. Today is Wednesday, May 21st, 2025, and you're listening to Alex's News. It's looking like a warm one in Riverside today, with the high reaching 86 degrees Fahrenheit and the low expected to be around 64.9 degrees Fahrenheit tonight. A good day to enjoy some sunshine, perhaps. Here is what we are recovering for you on Alexa S News. First, we'll take a closer look at the language being used by the Trump administration regarding immigration, specifically examining the reasons and implications behind framing it as an invasion. Then, we shift our focus to local matters in Southern California as we unpack the significant changes to Los Angeles County's homeless agency. We'll be discussing what this overhaul could mean for the crucial cooperation between the county and the city in addressing homelessness. Stay with us for these important stories and more, coming right up. Welcome back. For our first story this morning, we're looking at a significant and controversial proposal from the Trump administration that could reshape immigrant rights in the U.S. With us to break down these developments is our news reporter, Ethan. Ethan, this involves something called the writ of habeas corpus, which sounds quite serious.
It certainly is, Grace. The term itself, habeas corpus, is Latin for, quote, you may have the body, end quote. And as the New York Times has emphasized, it's a fundamental legal principle. It essentially means the government can't just lock someone up and throw away the key. They have to provide a public, legally sound reason for detaining and imprisoning an individual. It's a cornerstone of due process.
So what's the administration proposing? And why is this suddenly in the headlines?
Well, the issue gained prominence after a Senate hearing prior to today, May 21st, where, according to the New York Times, Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem incorrectly defined habeas corpus. She suggested it was a right for the president to remove people and suspend their rights. Senator Maggie Hassan quickly corrected her, clarifying its actual meaning as a safeguard against unlawful detention.
An important distinction indeed. So, beyond that misstatement, what is the administration actually considering?
According to reporting from Perplexity API, Stephen Miller, a key policy advisor to President Trump, confirmed on May 9th that the administration is actively exploring the suspension of habeas corpus, specifically for immigrants undergoing deportation. The New York Times also reported on this consideration. The administration's rationale, as Miller outlined, centers on framing undocumented immigration as an, quote, invasion, end quote.
An invasion, that's a very strong term, Ethan. Is there a legal basis for using that to suspend habeas corpus?
That's the crux of the debate, Grace. Article 1, Section 9, Clause 2 of the U.S. Constitution, known as the Suspension Clause, states, quote, the privilege of the writ of habeas corpus shall not be suspended unless when, in cases of rebellion or invasion, the public safety may require it, end quote. Perplexity API notes that historically, quote, invasion, end quote, in this context, has meant a substantial armed incursion by foreign military forces. Think the Civil War, or Hawaii after Pearl Harbor, as the New York Times pointed out regarding President Lincoln's actions.
So critics would argue that current border crossings don't meet that definition of an armed military attack?
Precisely. Legal experts cited by Perplexity API contend that characterizing current immigration levels as an, quote, invasion, end quote, is more of a rhetorical strategy than a sound legal basis for suspending such a fundamental right. They argue it doesn't meet that high constitutional threshold.
And who even has the power to suspend habeas corpus? Can the president do it unilaterally?
That's another major point of legal contention. Perplexity API highlights that Article 1, Section 9, is part of the article defining congressional powers. This strongly implies Congress, not the president alone, holds the primary authority. Historically, even President Lincoln's initial unilateral suspension during the Civil War was deemed unlawful by then Chief Justice Roger Taney, because the clause is in Article 1. More recently, justices like the late Antonin Scalia and Amy Coney Barrett have indicated that suspension requires legislative action.
This sounds like it's tied to a broader immigration strategy then?
Absolutely. Perplexity API reports this exploration is linked to plans for increased deportations. There's a significant spending bill, over $150 billion, aimed at border hardening and funding a, quote, mass deportation, end quote, campaign. That bill is making its way through the House. The House Ways and Means Committee approved its part on May 13th, and the Budget Committee was set to consolidate parts on May 16th. It's anticipated to pass the House before the Memorial Day recess, which is just 5 days away, and then head to the Senate in June.
So with all this discussion and the bill moving, has habeas corpus actually been suspended for immigrants as of today, May 21st?
No, Grace. Despite Stephen Miller's statements and the administration's rhetoric, Perplexity API indicates that as of today, no official announcements or concrete steps have been taken to formally suspend habeas corpus based on this, quote, invasion, end quote, rationale. It's still in the consideration and discussion phase.
I can only imagine the reaction to this proposal. It must be stirring up quite a constitutional storm.
It certainly is. Groups like the National Immigration Law Center, as noted by Perplexity API, have already stated they're ready to challenge any such attempt in court. And Secretary Noem's mischaracterization at the Senate hearing drew considerable political backlash, with critics really hammering home the importance of habeas corpus in protecting individual liberties from arbitrary government action. It's a debate that really gets to the core of American legal principles.
A very complex and developing situation. Ethan, thank you for shedding light on that for us.
You're welcome, Grace.
And for our second story this morning, we turn to a significant shakeup in how Los Angeles County is tackling its homelessness crisis. Here with the details is our reporter, Chloe. Chloe, it sounds like LA County is essentially hitting the reset button.
That's right, Grace. According to reporting from LAist and Perplexity API, it's a case of, quote, starting all over again, end quote. Los Angeles County is dismantling its long-standing joint city-county agency, the Los Angeles Homeless Services Authority, or LAHSA, as it's commonly known, and launching a completely new, county-controlled entity.
LAHSA has been the main player for decades. Why such a dramatic change now? Are they trying to find a new home for their homeless strategy, so to speak?
You could certainly say that, Grace. The decision to dissolve LAHSA follows some pretty scathing audits, as LAist and Perplexity API have highlighted. These audits pointed out significant failures, particularly in how LAHSA tracked its spending and the actual outcomes of its programs. There's been persistent criticism about its overall effectiveness and a real demand for greater accountability.
So out with the old, in with the new. What can you tell us about this new department that's taking its place?
It's going to be called the Los Angeles County Homeless Services Department. Perplexity API reports it's scheduled to officially launch on January 1st, 2026, which, as of today, May 21st, is just 225 days away. A full transition of all responsibilities from LAHSA is then anticipated by July 1st, 2026. Right now, they're deep in a preparatory phase, with significant funding and personnel transfers already underway from LAHSA.
And what's the main goal with this new county-controlled approach? Better oversight, perhaps, to ensure funds are being used effectively?
Exactly. The primary driver here is to provide the county with more direct oversight and significantly greater accountability over the funds being spent. This includes the substantial money generated by Measure A, that 0.5% sales tax voters approved specifically for homeless services. The hope, as Perplexity API notes, is to address long-standing issues like contract delays and unaccounted funds. It's about making sure every dollar is, well, accounted for.
That makes a lot of sense. Will this new department operate differently on a structural level?
It will. The plan is to consolidate functions that are currently spread out across 14 different county departments, plus those that were managed by LAHSA. Everything will come under the direct supervision of the County Board of Supervisors. This is expected to streamline decision-making and how resources are allocated. Interestingly, Perplexity API also mentions the department's structure is reportedly modeled after the county's existing Housing for Health program.
Housing for Health? What's their track record? Does it offer a beacon of hope?
It's quite promising. That program has demonstrated a 37% success rate in transitioning individuals from homelessness to permanent housing. So the county is looking to that as a proven framework, hoping to replicate that success on a much larger scale.
It sounds like a well-intentioned plan, but this is a huge undertaking. Has everyone been on board with this shift?
Not entirely, Grace. LAist and Perplexity API report that LA Mayor Karen Bass initially expressed strong opposition to the creation of the new agency. She warned of a potential, quote, massive disruption, end quote, in the region's fight against homelessness, and voiced serious concerns about the potential negative impact on city-county collaboration.
That's a crucial point. If the original problem was often cited as a lack of city-county cooperation, how will a county-led model fundamentally improve coordination with the City of Los Angeles?
That truly is the million-dollar question, Grace. As of today, Perplexity API indicates that no specific formal agreements, joint operational frameworks, or even memorandums of understanding have been publicly announced between Los Angeles County and the City of Los Angeles. These would be vital to clearly delineate responsibilities and ensure effective coordination before the new department launches in 2026.
So the specific roles and responsibilities are still a bit up in the air between the city and county?
To some extent, yes. While it's generally expected that the county will handle crucial mental health and addiction treatment services, and cities typically provide shelter beds, the precise delineation of these roles within the new structure is yet to be formally defined, according to LAist and Perplexity API. It's worth noting that LAIST isn't disappearing completely overnight. It's expected to continue administering certain federal requirements, like conducting the annual homeless count.
This sounds like a situation that's not unique to Los Angeles. Is this indicative of a wider California issue?
It certainly reflects broader challenges across the state. LAist reports that the lack of coordination and cooperation between cities and counties often hampers efforts to address homelessness statewide. They highlighted similar issues in other localities, such as San Diego, where disputes over funding and responsibilities are threatening homeless shelters, and Turlock, where a city-county disagreement actually led to the rejection of state funding for a local shelter. A state bill aimed at forcing counties to pay for half the cost of city-run shelters was notably weakened due to opposition, which further illustrates these difficulties. There's a lack of a statewide mandate clearly specifying the responsibilities of cities versus counties, which just fuels these disagreements over financial burdens.
So while LA County is trying to build a better mousetrap for its own region, the bigger picture involves a lot of complex, moving parts across California.
Precisely. California has launched a 3-year action plan emphasizing accountability and integrated services, as Perplexity API notes. But the success of such statewide initiatives really hinges on the effectiveness of local efforts, like the one now being rebuilt in Los Angeles. The restructuring in LA County aims to improve accountability and efficiency, but those concerns persist about potential disruptions to existing programs and the critical need for sustained, effective collaboration between the city and the county under this new system.
A complex situation indeed, with many hoping this new path leads to more Angelenos finding a path home. Thanks so much for breaking that down for us, Chloe, and for shedding light on those reports from LAist and Perplexity API.
You're welcome, Grace.
Here are some other headlines. Target's first quarter 2025 net sales fell 2.8% to $23.8 billion, missing forecasts, with comparable sales dropping 3.8% as a 5.7% decline in store sales outpaced a 4.7% rise in digital. The retailer now warns of a low single-digit sales decline for the entire fiscal year 2025, projecting GAAP earnings per share from $8 to $10, and adjusted EPS between $7 and $9. Cautious consumer spending, partly due to concerns over tariffs, is cited as a factor. Despite the sales dip, Target's operating income margin for the quarter rose to 6.2%. Partly due to a one-time benefit from litigation settlements. Without these gains, the margin was 3.7%. In Spain, Andriy Portnov, a former senior advisor to Ukraine's pro-Russian ex-president Viktor Yanukovych, was assassinated on the morning of May 21st. Portnov, who was sanctioned for his role in the Yanukovych administration, was shot multiple times in the head and torso by several attackers as he was getting into his vehicle after dropping off his children at the American School of Madrid. He died at the scene. No one else was injured. The assailants fled on foot, and Spanish forensic and homicide detectives are investigating, though no arrests have been made. Portnov was known for aiding Yanukovych, whose regime embezzled an estimated $40 billion before he fled Ukraine in 2014, and was later convicted in absentia of high treason. Closer to home, an investigation into racist conduct within Navy SEAL Team 4, based in Virginia, has prompted disciplinary actions. 2 enlisted members are facing action for creating and circulating racist memes targeting a black sailor in their platoon since 2022, which depicted the sailor as a slave and were shared in a group chat. Several platoon and team leaders are also being disciplined for leadership failures in inadequately addressing the sailor's concerns. The targeted sailor, whose SEAL qualifications and trident were revoked last year after he alleged the racist treatment contributed to his failure to remain a SEAL, will have his qualifications reinstated and receive back pay. This incident highlights broader diversity concerns within elite commando forces. Meanwhile, Elon Musk has announced he will reduce his political spending. This follows his significant financial backing of Donald Trump's 2024 presidential campaign, contributing over $250 million through his America PAC, and a notable failure in a recent political investment in Wisconsin's Supreme Court race. Speaking at the Qatar Economic Forum, Musk stated he would spend, quote, a lot less on political campaigns in the future, adding, quote, I think I've done enough. This decision comes amid backlash and controversy surrounding his political engagements, which led to protests against Tesla showrooms and reportedly impacted Tesla's sales in Europe. Musk has committed to spending more time on his businesses, such as Tesla, and has scaled back his role in the Trump administration. And finally, a bakery in Conway, New Hampshire, has won a free speech case against the town over a pastry shop painting. Levitt's Country Bakery owner, Sean Young, filed a lawsuit after the town attempted to enforce its sign code, demanding the removal or alteration of a mural painted by high school students on the bakery side. The mural depicted a creative mountain range composed of donuts, a muffin, and a cinnamon roll. After a one-day trial in February 2025, U.S. District Judge Joseph LaPlante ruled on May 20th that the town's actions were unconstitutional. Young, who requested only $1 in damages, expressed relief that his First Amendment rights were vindicated and that the community can continue to enjoy the artwork. That's all we have for now. Today's episode was made by Alexander King with Claude Sonnet 3.7, Gemini Pro 2.5 Experimental, Gemini Flash 2.0, Perplexity Sonar Pro, and Google Cloud Text-to-Speech. I hope you have a great day. I'll see you tomorrow, Alex.